And here he is, the man, the legend that is Van Connor, of course, top film critic, and also our Freeview guide for the weekend. Van chooses 3 Freeview films for your consideration. I choose 3 of my own, and you can pick the bones out of those. Good morning, Van. How's your week been, matey? Busy as ever, I suppose.
Busy as always, Mr. Ross, thank you. I got to see that new Nun sequel, the Conjuring spin-off, the Nun 2 this week. That was a good old-fashioned 3-star chiller.
So nice kind of plenty of jumps and scares in it, were there?
Yeah, it's easy to make nuns scary, I think. It's easy fodder for a horror movie.
I've only got to think of, spoiler alert, the end of Vertigo, to know how true that is. Now, let's go on to your first recommendation, an absolute cracker. I think this might have been the John Woo directed Mission Impossible. You've gone for number 2, is that right? On tonight.
It is, E4, 9pm tonight. This is the one that everyone rags on for some reason, and I cannot for the life of me understand it. Because if you were there in 2000, yeah, exactly. If you were there in 2000 when the marketing campaign for this movie dropped, it was next level action awesomeness. And what's not to love about Tom Cruise teaming up with John Woo for a new metal Mission Impossible, complete with a Limp Bizkit theme song? I mean, that's just badassery at its finest. This is...
You know,
this is in the heyday
they should put this in a Blue Peter time capsule if they still do them for the future, because it absolutely perfectly sums up that whole year, doesn't it?
Kind of does, doesn't it? We had Reindeer Games with Ben Affleck and this. Oh, and Gladiator. I think that sums up the year 2000 rather nicely. But this was at the heyday of the Australian tax break, so every movie was trying to get shot in Australia at this point, when the Star Wars sequels moved down there, for instance. And this sees the IMF team, not the MI team, the IMF team, going to Sydney to take down a rogue agent played by Gray Scott in a role the reshoots of which would actually cost him the role of Wolverine in X-Men. He had to give that up, and they got Hugh Jackman in to replace him, using Thandue Newton, then Tandy Newton, his ex-girlfriend, as the sort of honey trap to lure him in. And this is all in the aid of getting a stolen virus called the Chimera virus. It has the potential to destroy the world. So it was Ethan Hunt, almost said Ethan Hawke there. Very different movie if it's Ethan Hawke. Ethan Hunt on fine dual pistol wielding, slow-mo dove-flying form at the hands of John Woo. And I've got a clip for you. This is, I think, got the best line of dialogue from the whole movie. And this is Anthony Hopkins' very brief appearance as the director of the IMF in this case, giving Ethan his assignment for this time around. So you can see this tonight on E4 at 9 o'clock.
Your mission, and I hope you'll accept it, is to watch this film. Here's Van's clip.
You made it sound as if I was recruiting her for her skills as a thief.
Well, then I misled you, or you made the wrong assumption. Either way, we are asking her to resume a prior relationship, not do anything she hasn't already done. Voluntarily, I might add.
No. She's got no training for this kind of thing.
But to go to bed with a man and lie to him, she's a woman. She's got all the training she needs.
I don't think I can get her to do it.
You mean it'll be difficult?
Very.
Well, this is not mission difficult, Mr. Hunt. It's mission impossible. Difficult should be a walk in the park for you.
The attitude spoken by Anthony Hopkins reflect the era and his own views, not those of talks. Well, he'd be cancelled for that these days, wouldn't he? It's a woman. That's what they do.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, brilliant stuff. It's a great movie, that one. Now, I've gone for one of my... It's not a guilty pleasure, this, because it made money at the box office. It's become slightly a cult film, and it's based on a novel by S.E. Hinton, one of a series of a female writer from America, high school coming-of-age drama. I'm calling it my Friday night film. In fact, it's 25 minutes past midnight tonight, so basically to Saturday. From 1983, 40 years old this year. It's Francis Ford Coppola's brilliant film, The Outsiders, coming-of-age crime drama, and basically, we owe the existence of this film to a librarian, a woman called Jo Ellen Misakian, who was a librarian at Lone Star Elementary School in Fresno, California. And her and her students wrote to Francis Ford Coppola and said, look, if you're short of something to adapt, do an S.E. Hinton book, do this one. We love it, and they're right to. And the cast he assembled for this. So basically, it's sort of... There's the greasers and the posh preppy kids, and they're at war over things and coming of age. I mean, but the cast I wanted to focus on this one is absolutely astonishing. You've got, in no particular order, Karate Kid Ralph Macchio, Matt Dillon, of course, the Flamingo Kid, who also appears in the sort of half sequel to this one called Rumblefish, Patrick Swayze, Lord Patrick Swayze, Rob Lowe, Emilio Estevez, Tom Cruise, Diane Lane, Leif Garrett, had a singing star as well, and Tom Waits pops up in it as well as a host of others. I mean, it's an absolutely astonishing film. Even Sofia Coppola, as she often did, pops up in this film, and it's one of those films shot in an almost gorgeous, saturated Technicolor look, very much a kind of homage to films like Rebel Without a Cause, that kind of film, but more than that as well, much more kind of authentic. Even inspired Bruce Springsteen's wife, Patti Scialfa, to write a song called Pony Boy, because all the characters, the Greaser characters, have got nicknames. And I think Coppola, when he's preparing it, to keep the antagonism between the middle class kids and the Greasers going, I think the Greasers would live basically in shacks, whereas the middle class kids were given nice 5-star hotel movie style treatment. So again, as always with Coppola, there's kind of games playing going on off the set. A great film, this. I mean, you know, you can kind of always, it's a kind of plot by numbers. I think Rumblefish is a better and more intriguing, if flawed, film. The kind of Mickey Rourke, Matt Dillon, black and white film. But this is a real, I mean, I tell you what, I remember watching this with my son James when he was about 10 or 11. And he absolutely, you could see him thinking, this is how I feel about things. And in that way, I think it's quite a remarkable film, as way as C. Hinton's novels do, catching the kind of feeling of what it is to be. I mean, there's a great line in a novel by Jim Craichy called, the book's called Survivor, and the line goes, as a teenager, I was a danger to others and a mystery to myself. And there's that sense that these characters, certainly the Greasers, could take either the right path and have a great life, or one silly decision or mistake or running with the pack, and that's it, a life of crime, or even, you know, capital punishment could await them. So it's a great film, this one. And I say a great film. What did you make of this one? It's on tonight, 12:25, of course.
I think it's
a cracking film.
Absolute classic. Absolute classic. I mean, I remember this is I think my earliest introduction to Rob Lowe. Yeah. I think was through this movie. I mean, you've got Ralph Macchio as the brilliantly named Johnny Cade in there. In fact, the names I think I always remember, because you've got characters named, as you pointed out, like Pony Boy and Soda Pop and things like that. There's Emilio in there. I mean, any movie with Emilio, you've got my money right off the bat. This is one of those, like, masterful casting exercises, the likes of which we don't really see unless it's a Christopher Nolan movie now.
And we've got it's Talking Pictures TV to thank for showing this one. I think it's the theatrical version. There's a longer version, which is also worth catching whenever it's on. It's on at 25 minutes past midnight, so it's effectively tomorrow morning. It's my Friday recommendation. And here, my friends, is a chunk of the trailer for The Outsiders.
Get your feet off my chair and shut your trap.
Who's gonna make me, huh?
I'm going to get a coat.
Who, your boyfriend?
Leave her alone, Dal.
That's a
Get me one,
just
Johnny.
got out of some jail or something.
Yeah, sure. Whatever you say, honey.
You better leave us alone or I'll call the cops.
Oh, my. You got me scared to death. What am I gonna do now, Pony? Huh? This girl's making me shake.
Why don't you leave us alone? Be nice and leave us alone.
I'm never nice. Can I, interest you in a Coca-Cola or 7-Up?
Get lost, Hood!
So that's The Outsiders for me, my first choice, 25 minutes past midnight tonight, so it's tomorrow morning on Talking Pictures TV. What's your second recommendation for us this week, Van?
Well, this is one that you and I sat in the booth on Oscar night cheering on a whopping 6 years ago now. It's Christopher Nolan's Dunkirk from 2017. Yes, great, isn't it? You can see this Saturday night, 10:30 on BBC One. Not necessarily a Saturday night beer and pizza movie, if we're being honest. It's a bit more soulful than that. But this is, of course, Christopher Nolan's retelling of, you know, the liberating the soldiers from the beaches of Dunkirk, taking place in the air, on the land, and at sea. And true to Nolan form, you get a massive all-star cast, you get masterful cinematography. I think at this point, still Wally Pfister on cinematography at this point as well. You get the Hans Zimmer score. You get that sense of time that Nolan brings to everything, because he loves to play with time and timing, your sense of continuity. And what he does here is simply applies a different passage of time to every facet of the operation. So in the air, time moves at a different speed to how it moves for the people at sea, and for the soldiers on the beach, moves in days, for instance. Maybe it's minutes for them in the air. Absolutely brilliant. You've got a cast here that includes people like Mark Rylance, Ken Branagh, Cillian Murphy, Tom Hardy, Jack Lowden's in there, Barry Keoghan from Banshees of Inisherin's in there. It's even got, I think it's one of the very early performances of Harry Styles as well.
Of course,
claim to fame, but yeah.
And the opening of this in particular really stays with me, because you've got British soldiers, or Allied soldiers, which is to say, trying to flee, getting away from the incoming Germans, being relentlessly mown down kind of in the back. And you suddenly think it absolutely sums up the randomness of combat, the unfairness of it all, and also the sheer terror felt by these very young men indeed, just with no knowledge of what was going on, no direction, no leaders, fleeing for their lives. Yeah,
it's a hell of a movie. I mean, for my money, I think this is the best mainstream studio war movie. Give or take Fury. It's Private Ryan. Yeah. I would go that far. Oh, maybe Black Hawk.
And what a great performance. I mean, a huge array of stars. Kenneth Kenneth Branagh in this in particular is fantastic. They're all brilliant in this one.
Oh, yeah.
So what's your clip for us there, Ben, on this one?
So I've got a clip. This is more of a trailer clip than anything else, but this is just to demonstrate the tension and that ticking clock that plays throughout. It's like I say, Saturday night, BBC One, 10:30. Strap on in for Nolan's version of Dunkirk.
Here we go.
You're weekend sailors, not the bloody Navy. You should be at home.
There's no hiding from this, son. We have a job to do.
Turn it around!
We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight on the landing grounds. We shall never surrender. We shall never surrender. We shall never surrender.
Where's the bloody airport?
Wow, I mean, that is an absolute experience. I saw it in the cinema. I was lucky enough to see it in the cinema with an amazing sound, because the sound effects of the sound of that film carries it through brilliantly. Now, my second recommendation, I've realised all three of mine this week are 80s-tastic. We had The Outsiders from 83.
Oh, yeah.
I'm now going for Beetlejuice from 1988. I still think this is Tim Burton's best film. I saw it knowing nothing about it at a very early screening and was absolutely blown away, hypnotised by it. It's got a wonderful kind of Addams Family type dark poetry to it, completely surreal, makes no sense the minute you walk out the cinema, but at the time you're completely caught up in this world of the handbook for the recently deceased, how you can actually, you can haunt a house, how you can summon Beetlejuice if you say his name, but you really don't want to, because he's this kind of basically the con man of the afterlife, if you like. Michael Keaton's again finest day. Because of this, he got Batman against the student opposition. He was brilliant as Batman. He's brilliant in that Birdman film he made, but this is one of his finest hours as well. And you can see this, folks, 5-star, tomorrow afternoon, 5:35. It is funny for reasons that you can't explain to people. It's funny that a very middle-class family and their interior designer, whose cameras are of pink tents in the late Dale Winter's back garden, start dancing to a wonderful Harry Belafonte song. And it's just funny because it's just funny full stop. And it's from the twisted, surreal and wonderful imagination of Tim Burton. He couldn't have been hampered at all by the studios on this one. I think he just made the Pee-wee film, hadn't he? So I suppose they thought, if anyone gets this kind of mad nonsense, it's him. And it's just it's always in my top 10 of favourite movies, because you're going to have a comedy. And this, I think, is that rare thing, an absolutely timeless comedy. I love this Howard Hawks screwball comedies. I love some of the Carry On films. I like Norman Wisdom, Chaplin. But this is a timeless, surreal comedy. It's kind of, if Buñuel had ever made a mainstream Hollywood film, I think Louis Buñuel would have made this as his comedy.
Absolutely. I think it's a trendsetter as well in terms of that very signature gothic comedic bent that it takes. I think this leads to us having the Addams Family movies that we get in the early 90s as well. I don't think we get those without Beetlejuice laying the way first. But, you know me, I'm game for any movie that's got Alec Baldwin in a leading role. You've got my money there and then. But this is Keaton on fine swinging from the rafters form. I absolutely love this movie, and he's just perfect in it.
I'm feeling kind of anxious, as he said at one point. Honk, honk, 5-star, 5:35 tomorrow afternoon. It's a Beetlejuice from 1988. Enjoy.
Adam and Barbara are ghosts.
What's the good of being a ghost if you can't frighten people away?
Their house is being haunted by the living.
Maybe the house could use a little remodeling.
And they can't scare them into leaving.
Dad, it's a little late to be neurotic.
So they're calling on Beetlejuice.
Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice!
Who's no ordinary ghost.
You don't want his help.
Can you be scary?
What do you think of this?
Now, the party's over.
You want somebody out of the house? I want to get somebody out of your house.
But the fun has just begun.
It's showtime.
Wow, it's a great film. So that's tomorrow afternoon, 5:35 on 5-star. My final recommendation, another 80s-tastic masterpiece in my opinion, it's got to be The Evil Dead. So we've gone from a comedy about the recently dead to one of the scariest films, I think, of all time, an absolute rule game changer when it came to horror films. And one of those films that spawned a franchise, launched the career of Sam Raimi, who's made some brilliant films, made the Spider-Man films, made some other things. I still love Darkman, as you know, the kind of superhero he invented.
Oh, yes.
The follow-up to this one. But this is also one of the most, from the cost to the actual profitability, one of the most profitable films of all time after a while. It only cost $375,000. It made $3 million, I think, first release. It's since made many, many millions more than that and spawned a huge kind of new line franchise for you. And basically, Cabin in the Woods, don't open the book, They open the book, out pop the Evil Dead, and they're going to get you. And that's all you need to know. And then it gets increasingly, some of the effects now look a little bit OTT and a little bit almost comic. That was the point at the time. And it's got the Sam Raimi's mate, Bruce Campbell, in it, who is brilliant. This is a lantern-jawed thicko who doesn't quite know what's going on, but knows somebody's got to get out of their cabin alive, and it's going to be him. And if you've never seen this film, folks, I envy you, because it is, if you're at all interested in horror films, an absolute roller coaster ride, but not the kind of roller coaster you want to ride on, because you wouldn't make it to the end. 9 out of 10 of the people on the roller coaster would end up brown bread dead, I think. I remember that, again, the first time I saw this and Nightmare on Elm Street, the first one, frightened the living daylights out of me, and I thought by then I'd seen it all. I thought The Exorcist was as far as you could go. How wrong I was. 80s horror arrived with a vengeance with this film. I think a great movie, Van.
Oh, absolutely. It's one of my favourite movies ever, The Evil Dead.
See, I did not know that. It's almost like,
as well.
I didn't know that. It's almost like you're my brother from another mother. It's a great film, this, isn't it?
It's great. Bruce Campbell wrote a memoir in the early 2000s called If Chins Could Kill, Confessions of a B-Movie Actor. And if you read an entire third of the book, I'm guessing, estimating, I think an entire third of it is just devoted to all the tricks and tools they used to make and achieve all the great shots in The Evil Dead. It's a fascinating book. If you've ever been into indie filmmaking or anything like that, just the tricks you can learn from Bruce Campbell's memoir, If Chins Could Kill, well worth checking out.
Because also it's effectively crowdfunded, long before crowdfunding was a thing, wasn't it? I think they made a short film to show what they were going to do, and they got money in from here, there, and everywhere. Made the film, made a fortune, and launched Samuel M. Raimi, I think is his full name, as a top American filmmaker. This is on midnight, of course it is, Sunday night on BBC Two. We're going to get you. They certainly will. Here's the trailer.
I fear that the only way to stop those possessed by the spirits of the book is through the act of bodily dismemberment.
I don't care what happens to her. She's your girlfriend. You take care of her.
And there they go, starting at the chainsaw. Dismemberment ensues. Much frivolity, much hilarity, and many, many scares. What's your final recommendation for us, man? My third 80s film, that one, a great lineup, I think, this week, though I do say it myself. Some great movies on this weekend.
Do you know, I will tell you just before we move on, I was debating dressing up as Bruce Campbell's Ash for Halloween this year, completely 3D printed chainsaw arms. So if I can achieve that, I'll send you the picture, Paul. So final film, I'm going to go with a 2000 comedy that turned out to be the absolute breakout, the hitmaker role that was long overdue, about 5 years overdue for Sandra Bullock. It was Miss Congeniality.
Great film.
And it's on Sunday afternoon, 3:45 on Channel 5. It's a banger, isn't it? Really sort of obvious premise that works way better than it should. It's the story of a sort of tomboy FBI agent who has to go undercover at the Miss America pageant in order to prevent a terrorist threat. And given she's Sandra Bullock, made to look all dowdy, but obviously glammed up to look like, it's the Sandy B we all know and love now, under the tutelage of fallen from grace prom master extraordinaire Michael Caine, who absolutely steals this movie. Our clip is going to be of Michael Caine because how could it not be?
Although, let me catch in, because it's got William Shatner, and to steal a film from William Shatner takes some thievery, and it's a brilliant... The Shat, of course, and Michael Caine in the same film. What's not to love?
Exactly, and you get Shatner and Candice Bergen like 2 or 3 years before they're on Boston Legal together. Yeah. So, that pairing gets formed here.
Brilliant stuff. Okay, so when's this on, and what's your clip about then? Given it's got the great Sir Michael Caine. Long may he continue.
Of course. Channel 5 on Sunday afternoon at 3:45. This is just a great Sunday afternoon movie. I could watch this over and over. Got a clip for you, and this is Michael Caine being introduced to the young woman he rather begrudgingly is going to have to fashion into a would-be Miss America.
Here we go. Enjoy, folks.
Philip, could I have another Cabernet Sauvignon, please? Another cake for you?
I'm good, thanks.
It's okay, Philip.
So, now how long have you been doing this pageant training thing?
I'm sorry? What was the question? I was distracted by the half-masticated cow rolling around in your wide-open trap.
Excuse me, what is your problem?
Problem?
Yeah. Yes. Have I offended you in some way? Because quite frankly, you've been completely antagonistic to me since the second I walked in that door.
Did you know that I was once the most sought-after, highly paid consultant in pageant history?
I had no idea.
Great stuff there. So 6 recommendations. You choose between them, of course. Tell us about his off-screen back this morning with you and Adam.
Yeah, we are back this morning talking about The Nun, Nun 2, talking about Outpost and Past Lives that's getting a lot of traction. There's also a really great documentary about a Malaysian swindler named Jolo, and the movie's called Man on the Run. That is so worth checking out. This guy embezzled from the Malaysian government and used it to fund the movie The Wolf of Wall Street.
Wow.
You couldn't make it up.
Wow.
So you can hear that on podcast platforms from 8 a.m. today.
It's called Off Screen. It's always a great listen, folks, as is Van Conner when he joins us each and every Friday with me, Paul Ross, New Guys on talkSPORT and talkRADIO, and temporarily, that's a wrap. Now, where did I put that remote control?